Get ready because we're diving deep into Big Pharma and, the crazy high prices of prescription drugs. Imagine like needing a life-saving drug,
Yeah.
but then finding out
Yeah.
each pill costs, like $1,000.
Oh, yeah. No, you're not kidding. That's a tough pill to swallow,
Yeah.
literally and figuratively.
And it's not just some, like what if scenario. This was the actual launch price of Sovaldi,
Right.
which was a hepatitis C drug
Yeah.
back in 2013.
Wow.
And it's just one example, like so many others, of the
Yeah.
crazy prices that, Americans are dealing with.
It's it's unfortunately become pretty common.
So that's what we're going to try to unpack today. We've got this great report from the Center for American Progress. It's
Right.
called How Big Pharma Reaps Profits While Hurting Everyday Americans. I have a feeling we're going to find some
Oh, yeah.
some pretty shocking stuff in here.
For sure. This is a real eye-opener, this report.
So by the end of this deep dive, you'll understand what's pushing these prices up, like taxpayer-funded research, lobbying, and political influence.
It's complicated.
Yeah, it's a lot.
But we'll break it all down.
It's like a whole web, but we're going to try to untangle it.
Absolutely.
So first, let's just make this real. The report talks about Antoinette, whose 22-year-old daughter
Right.
tragically died because she had to ration her insulin
Oh, wow.
because it was just so expensive.
Yeah.
And this just reminds us that this isn't just some theoretical thing, It's about real people's lives.
Absolutely. This leads to so many consequences.
Yeah.
People end up in medical debt. They have to put off treatments. Sometimes they just skip them altogether.
Yeah.
And then people's health suffers as a result. Millions and millions of people.
Yeah, it's a whole terrible cycle. And the numbers are they're staggering. 1 in 4 diabetics in America are actually having to ration their insulin.
That's unbelievable.
Now let's talk about insulin for a sec.
Yeah.
This is a drug that's been around for like 100 years.
Right.
But the price has just exploded.
Yeah, between 2002 and 2013, the price has tripled.
What?
Even though it only costs about, $78 to $133 per year per patient to make to manufacture. Yeah.
Those numbers just don't even make sense. They
don't. And then when you start looking at global prices,
okay,
it gets even crazier. Yeah. A vial of Novolog insulin can cost you anywhere from like $14 to $300 here in the U.S.
Right.
But in Austria, $6.
$6? How is that even possible?
And get this, it's free in Italy.
Free? You're kidding.
I'm not. It's completely free.
That just shows you how all over the place these drug pricing policies are,
Yeah, totally different all over the world.
Okay, so this is where I start to get really mad,
Yeah.
Because the report's explaining how we, the American taxpayers,
Right.
we're kind of paying for these drugs twice.
Exactly. Because through the NIH, the National Institutes of Health, we American taxpayers fund a lot of the basic research that goes into new drug development.
We're investing in our own health care.
Right.
But then we get slammed with these crazy prices.
For the very drugs that we paid to develop.
It's like a double whammy.
Total double hammy. The report actually found that NIH funding went into every single one of the 210 new drugs that the FDA approved.
Really?
Between 2010 and 2016.
So we pay for the research,
Yeah.
and then we get ripped off when we try to buy the drug.
It's like we're getting robbed twice.
It is. It is like getting robbed twice.
So this report really pulls back the curtain on how Big Pharma makes so much money.
Yeah.
And patents are a big part of that.
So how are they, making so much profit?
Well, patents give them monopoly on the drug.
Right.
So they can basically set whatever price they want.
Yeah.
But it doesn't stop there. They have these sneaky tactics to make those monopolies last even longer.
Like what?
Like evergreening and thicketing.
Yeah, the report mentioned those.
So evergreening is basically giving a pill a little makeover.
Yeah.
Maybe you add a stripe.
Right.
You change the coating a little bit.
Yeah.
Just enough to get a brand new patent.
Wow.
But it's just cosmetic. They're just resetting the clock.
Yeah.
So they can block generics from coming in.
Oh, so they're manipulating the patent system.
Exactly.
Just to keep those profits coming in.
And then there's sickening.
Right.
And that's when they flood the patent office with all kinds of applications.
Right.
So it's like a legal minefield for any competition.
Wow.
And you won't believe this. A 2018 study found that 78%
what?
of new drug patents over the last decade were for drugs that already existed.
Are you serious?
Yeah, they're not even hiding it anymore.
Wow. So it's all about making as much money as possible.
Squeezing every penny out of these monopolies.
Even if people can't afford the meds, they need.
It's really frustrating.
This is so infuriating. But how are they getting away with this?
The report also talks about how much influence Big Pharma has in Washington.
Right.
With lobbying and donations and stuff.
You're hitting the nail on the head.
Yeah.
Big Pharma, they spent a record $62 million on the 2016 elections.
Wow.
So it's no surprise that any legislation that would let Medicare negotiate drug prices keeps getting shut down.
So they're basically buying their way out of any real change.
It definitely seems that way. Their influence on our political system, it's real and it's hurting people.
So let's talk about former President Trump's record on drug prices.
Okay.
Because he promised to bring them down, right?
Right.
But what actually happened once he got into office?
Well, his actions, they told a different story. He appointed Alex Azar as his Health and Human Services Secretary. Azar was the former president of Eli Lilly.
Wait a minute, Eli Lilly? The company that's always raising insulin prices?
The one and only.
Oh, my goodness.
Seems like a conflict of interest. Right?
Yeah, it definitely seems like it. And then, here's the kicker.
Okay.
Eli Lilly got a $4.5 billion tax cut under Trump's tax law.
Really?
So you'd think they would use that money to lower drug prices.
Yeah, you would think.
Nope.
What did they do with it?
They used a combined, with other pharmaceutical companies, $45 billion for stock buybacks.
Hold on. So they get tax breaks, then they raise drug prices, then they use the extra cash to just make themselves and their shareholders richer?
Basically.
Something is really messed up here.
It's a pattern that we keep seeing in this report.
Yeah.
And it's a sign that the system needs to change.
So what does all of this mean for like the average person?
Well, it shows that high drug prices aren't just a market issue.
Yeah.
They're tied up with government policy, corporate lobbying, and broken promises.
So basically, it's a tangled mess of power and influence.
Right. And it's costing Americans their health and their financial security.
Absolutely. This report focuses on the federal level, but I'm curious, what about the state level? What's happening there?
That's a great question. Could states come up with their own ways to control these costs? What could that look like?
That's something I'm really interested to look into.
Definitely, because it's time we demand some accountability from our government.
From both the federal and state level.
To fix this crisis. It affects all of us, and it can't keep going on like this.
Now let's switch gears and dive into what's going on in those states. There's a lot to talk about. It seems like, while Washington's kind of dragging its feet, some states are actually stepping up and trying to deal with this.
Yeah, definitely. It's really interesting to see all these different approaches.
Yeah, some states are being super bold, and others are being a little more cautious. It's like a real-life experiment in healthcare policy.
Exactly. It's fascinating to see how it'll all play out. One thing that's gaining traction is this idea of state-level prescription drug affordability boards.
Yeah, I've heard that term before, but I don't really get what they do.
Oh, okay, sure.
Okay.
Basically, they're like watchdogs for drug prices. They can evaluate and even set limits on the prices of certain drugs.
So they're trying to, control Big Pharma's power, but at the state level.
You got it. It's all about putting patients and taxpayers first.
Instead of just profits, right?
Right. Have any states actually done this?
Yeah. Are there any, real-world examples?
Yeah, a few states have been leading the way. Maryland was the first.
Okay.
They set up a board back in 2019.
Yeah.
And then Colorado, Maine, and a few others followed.
That's great. What kind of impact are they having? Are they actually lowering prices?
It's still early, but there are some good signs. Like in Maryland, the board can set limits on how much state employee health plans pay for certain expensive drugs.
Wow, that's huge.
It is. It's a whole new level of price regulation. And other states are doing similar things. Colorado's board is focusing on transparency.
Yeah, transparency is a big issue. It always feels like drug pricing is like a secret.
Totally. That lack of transparency makes it impossible to know how they set those prices.
Right. Where's all the money going?
Exactly. So these boards are trying to shine a light on the whole system.
Okay, so they're demanding more information from the drug companies.
Yes. About their pricing, their R&D costs, the marketing expenses. It's about accountability.
Sounds like this could really give patients and consumers more control.
It definitely has that potential.
Yeah.
When people have the information, they can make informed choices.
Yeah.
And push for policies that make drugs more affordable.
Besides these boards, what else are states doing? Are there any other creative ideas out there?
Oh, yeah. States are getting really innovative. One strategy is promoting generic drugs.
Right. Generics are way cheaper.
They are. because they have the same active ingredients, but they cost way less.
Yeah.
So states are encouraging doctors to prescribe generics and pharmacists to dispense them whenever they can.
Makes sense. What other cost-saving measures are states looking at?
Another approach is using the combined purchasing power of state-run health programs,
Okay.
like Medicaid, to negotiate lower prices.
So it's like bulk buying, but for medicine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
States can pool their resources and negotiate as one big group.
So they get a better deal.
Exactly. What else? One that's interesting is importing drugs from Canada.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about that. What's happening with that?
Well, some states, like Florida and Vermont,
Okay.
have passed laws to make it easier to import drugs from Canada.
But hasn't the pharmaceutical industry been fighting that?
Oh, they have. They say it's risky, for safety and quality.
Yeah.
But people who support importation say that Canada has high standards,
Right.
and the cost savings are just too big to ignore.
Yeah, it sounds like a battle that's not ending anytime soon.
Yeah, it's a fight worth having, though. It's great that states are challenging the system.
Yeah, it shows they're serious about finding solutions.
For sure.
So even though the federal government's moving slowly, it's good to see states stepping up.
It is. It's not just about specific policies.
Yeah.
It's about changing how we think about drug pricing.
Right, and healthcare in general.
Exactly. It has to be about people, not just profits.
Yeah, access and affordability should be the priority.
Absolutely. It's about creating a system that works for everyone, not just Big Pharma.
And that brings up something important that we haven't really talked about.
Yeah.
What about the role of the consumer? Like, what about us?
Oh, that's a great point. We've been talking about the system itself, but what about navigating it?
Yeah, how can individuals make a difference?
I think that's where a lot of power lies. If we're informed and empowered,
Okay.
we can change things. It starts with asking questions. Talk to your doctor about costs. Ask about generics. Shop around to different pharmacies.
Right, don't assume they all charge the same.
Exactly. You might be surprised by the differences. It's about being proactive.
Yeah, taking control instead of just accepting whatever we're told.
Exactly. Advocate for yourself, for your wallet, and don't forget about online pharmacies.
Oh, right, online pharmacies.
They can have big savings, but do your research.
Yeah, make sure they're legit.
You don't want to mess around with quality or safety.
Yeah, safety is super important. Are there any resources to help people with online pharmacies?
There are. The National Association of Boards of Pharmacy,
Okay.
they can help you check if a pharmacy is legitimate.
So we can actually do a lot ourselves to manage these costs. It's good to know we're not totally powerless.
Exactly. It's not just about our own actions, though.
Right.
We need to use our voices, demand change from our leaders,
Yeah.
support organizations fighting for lower prices.
Let our representatives know this matters to us.
Exactly. And it's not just voting.
Right.
We can contact them directly, share our stories.
Yeah. Raise awareness.
It's about creating a movement for change.
Because real change won't happen unless we demand it.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
We're not just bystanders. We can shape the healthcare system.
Yeah.
And we need to use that power.
It's a powerful message. We have agency. We can make a difference.
That's right. And by working together, by being informed, I believe we can build a healthcare system that puts people first.
We've covered so much today.
We have.
The human cost of these high prices, the complex factors driving them.
Right.
We've even looked at potential solutions at the federal and state levels, and even what individuals can do.
It's been a real deep dive. I'm glad we could do this together.
Yeah, me too. But before we go, you mentioned something about communities.
Right.
I'm really curious to hear more about that.
We've talked about federal and state solutions, but what about local? What about the power of communities to address this? Think about that as we head into our final part.
Okay, so we're back and ready to wrap up our deep dive into Big Pharma and these crazy drug prices. But before we go, you left us with that thought about communities, communities tackling this issue.
Right.
I'm really curious to hear more.
So we've talked about solutions at the federal level, at the state level.
Right.
But what about bringing it even closer? Like, what about our own communities?
Okay, yeah. I'm picturing, neighbors uniting against Big Pharma.
Yeah.
But, what would that actually look like?
So imagine, a community-owned pharmacy.
Okay.
Not some big chain, but a nonprofit run by the community, for the community.
That's a really cool idea.
Yeah, where the focus is on making sure people can afford their meds, not on profits. Or what about community health clinics?
Yeah.
Offering medications on a sliding scale so people pay what they can afford.
Right.
Or maybe even citywide drug discount programs.
Wow, there are so many possibilities. Like
Yeah.
taking healthcare into our own hands, literally.
Exactly. It's about the power of community, finding solutions that work for everyone.
It's really inspiring to see how this issue is leading to, like,
Yeah.
innovation and action at all these different levels,
Yeah.
from individuals to state governments to, like, local communities.
It is. It shows that people are ready for change.
Absolutely. So, what are some of the big takeaways from our deep dive? What do we want listeners to remember?
Okay, so first, remember, high drug prices aren't just some abstract problem. They have real consequences. We heard Antoinette's story.
Right.
There are countless others out there.
This is about real people's lives.
Exactly. Second, remember this issue is totally tied up with politics and corporate influence.
Right. Big Pharma spends a ton of money.
Yeah, to protect their profits.
And it often hurts everyday people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Third, and this is the hopeful part, remember change is possible.
Yeah, there's hope.
We're seeing states try new things, like those affordability boards, importation programs.
Yeah, and we can't forget the power of individuals.
Right.
We can be smart consumers, ask questions, shop around, speak up.
Totally. And don't underestimate the power of your community. Get involved. Talk to people. See if you can create change right where you live.
We've covered so much ground in this deep dive.
We have.
Heartbreaking stories, the complex factors driving these prices. But most importantly, we've talked about solutions and the power we have to change things.
That's what this is all about, giving you the information and the inspiration to create a better, more affordable healthcare system for everyone.
Thanks for joining us on this journey. We hope you'll keep learning about this issue, get involved in your communities, and demand a better system for all of us.
It's a fight worth fighting, and together we can make a real difference.